Hi everybody, it's Kate from Next Steps here again, and I have just another video for you that you can use to get ready to participate in group exercise classes virtually. So whatever the mode of your class that you might be taking, these are some things that will be useful for you to have on hand. So hopefully letting you know ahead of time so that you're prepared when the time comes for classes. So what you're going to want to have on hand if possible would be something for resistance. So we have that in two ways. We either have free weights or elastic resistance. So for example, light hand weights would be something good to have on hand. I happen to have at home, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So something light like that will be sufficient. And if you're thinking, well, great, she said free weights, I don't have free weights. You can be creative and come up with some substitutions without having to buy something. So for example, a water bottle is what, 16.9 ounces, so just very slightly over a pound. You could also, maybe you don't have a water bottle, maybe you have cans of soup or tomato products in my house, make a lot of spaghetti sauce. You can use something like this as a free weight also. If you want to use elastic resistance, which we will come up with, I'm still trying to think of a creative way to get away without using a TheraBand or another kind of tube, but any brand of elastic resistance would of course be fine. Each brand has their own color coding system for different resistance, but generally if you have choices to make, if you compare bands, you're going to see one is maybe a little thicker or heavier than another. Of course, your thicker one is going to have more resistance. So these are some elastic tubes that I happen to have at home. They have handles on them, which are kind of convenient, especially if you have any trouble with fine motor. This is a nice thing to be able to slide your hand into to be able to use potentially. If you have an elastic sheet type of band that's like thin and flat, and it just looks like a strip of rubber basically, you can also use that, but if you need something to be a little bit easier on your hands to control, you can just tie a loop into the end of it. So what I would do, you don't have to with this, but since I don't have a sheet, I'll show you how to tie it. You would fold this just at the end so that you have a loop. And then you can bring that loop around and through to just tie the end into a big knot and then pull. And now you want to make sure that your loop is big enough that it's not difficult for you to maneuver your hand in. Okay, so depending on if you want to hold something here or hold something here, depending on, maybe the movement that we're doing, this could be convenient. So you might want to have something like that set up beforehand. In addition to those things, I like to use like a therapy ball sometimes. So, and if you've been at Next Steps, you've probably seen me use these before in some capacity. Again, not expensive. This is one of those cheapo little balls that you get around like Easter time for kids to play out in the yard in the spring. It can cost like maybe $1 or $2. So there should be some of them out around now. Hopefully you already have something like this at home. Additionally, like any ball around this size really would work. So a volleyball might be a little bit heavier, a basketball might be a little bit heavier and have a little bit more demand because of the weight of it. These are nice because they're really light. But that's not to say that you can't use something in its place also. So just another thing to think of in your stockpile. So let's say we're using something like this that we want to be a little bit heavier. You don't have a basketball, you don't have a medicine ball, not a problem. I have a great suggestion for that too. Likely, you might have something in your pantry that's also very helpful here too. So this is a 5-pound bag of rice. So if we're doing things that are maybe a little bit more balance centered or involve some trunk control, this is something that I can relatively easily balance onto my wrist. I can reach away, I can pull up, a lot of options with that. It doesn't have to be rice, and it certainly doesn't have to be a particular brand. You can use beans or any other type of heavier grain, and it should say on the package how much it weighs. You can divide accordingly or throw it on a scale. That's a good way too. Or I learned this trick actually from, I think, a developmental therapist. This is just a packing envelope. It's a pretty one, but it's just a packing envelope that you would throw something in. It's padded. And I put a bunch of, I think, like just dried pinto beans in here. And then I wrapped the whole thing in a ton of packing tape. So this isn't going anywhere, but it's a nice, heavy, easily malleable type of resistance. So again, if things are tough to hold in your hand and free weights get away from you a little bit too much, balancing something onto your forearm for shoulder resistance might actually be a little bit more practical in that sense. Maybe you don't have a cuff weight. If you do have a cuff weight that Velcros on, that's great. You could certainly modify this in such a way that you could put your arm through a loop. You would have to be careful with that and make sure it's not too tight. But again, if you're looking, for example, if we're going to be doing shoulder strengthening, where you're bringing your arm up to the side, this isn't fastened to me in any fashion. It's just balanced onto my arm, and I'm able to get some resistance with that motion. So those are the few things that you want to maybe think about. If you have a surface that you're comfortable transferring to, if you have good balance, if you're someone that uses a wheelchair and you want to get out of your chair to practice someplace else, start thinking of what those settings look like for you. And of course, if you have questions about that, let me know, and I can help you kind of like troubleshoot something before you attempt to exercise. Particularly if it's something you've never tried before, definitely reach out first. And I can help you decide if that's something that's going to work or not. We'll figure it out together. So think of your space, think of your equipment, and then think of maybe what time of day would be a good time for you to be working too. So thanks for watching. And as always, let me know if you have any questions. You can reach out to me through email. My email address is kbenson, that's KBENSON, at nextstepschicago.org. Thanks so much for watching.